Good evening, everybody. Joanna Picciotto asked if she could see the first sentence of my introduction. It says, welcome. I want to tell you about two more events that are coming up in the Holloway series this fall semester. The next one is taking place in 10 days on a Friday. That's Friday, November 18th. And it's an unusual event, a polyvocal, multi-person, 8-person reading performance of a score that has been derived by each of the 8 people from a set of 10 books which are collectively titled The Grand Piano, an Experiment in Collective Autobiography. So 8 of the 10 authors of that series of 10 books will be here reading and performing on November 18th. And just so that you know who they are, Ray Armentrout, Steve Benson, Carla Harriman, Ted Pearson, Tom Mandel, Kit Robinson, Barrett Watton, and me. And then on December 1st, another amazing event will bring 2 poets, a Bay Area poet named Jocelyn Seidenberg, who is currently, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, has abandoned her library job and is now getting her PhD in Comp Lit here at Berkeley. She's the author of many books of writing, and she'll be reading along with the poet Anne Waldman, who will be visiting from the East Coast. And that's on December 1, a Thursday night. Tonight's event is a very special one and not strictly speaking a part of the regular fall Holloway series. It is, as it were, the Holloway reading, in that the poet who will read her work to us tonight is the 2011-12 Roberta C. Holloway Poet and lecturer in the practice of poetry, Judith Goldman. Among previous Holloway poets are such notable figures as Louise Gluck, Michael Palmer, Paul Muldoon, Yusef Koumenjaka, Anne Carson, Mark McMorris, and our own Robert Hass and Jeffrey G. O'Brien. This unique and prestigious lectureship came into existence in 1981, so exactly 30 years ago, through a bequest given to the English department as part of the estate of Roberta C. Holloway, who received her BA degree in English with honors from UC Berkeley in 1923, and her PhD in English here 23 years later, in 1945. I would like to take this occasion to say something about the background to Roberta C. Holloway's bequest. As a poet, and in due course one with a PhD in English, it was her lifelong ambition to teach, even if only briefly, at her alma mater, UC Berkeley. This opportunity never came to her. She spent her teaching years at San Jose State University. But as she reached the end of her life, she was determined to make such an opportunity possible for other poets. She left what at the time was a generous but not astonishing amount of money to the English department as a bequest to be devoted to bringing a poet for a semester to Berkeley to teach and to enjoy the remarkable creative and intellectual culture of the English department's literary community. The bequest, not having been squandered, has grown over the years. It is now sufficient to sponsor not only the Holloway lectureship, but also the Holloway poetry readings and 3 Holloway postdoctoral fellowships given annually to outstanding recent Berkeley English PhD students, whose field is the creation and scholarship of poetry. As required by the terms of the bequest, the committee supervising the Holloway lectureship, currently held by Judith, was chaired by Josephine Miles for as long as she was an active faculty member. The committee is now a collective involving all 5 of the poets who are current members of the English department faculty. Josephine Miles, who died in 1985 at the age of 74, was the first woman to be tenured in Berkeley's English department. She was a nationally recognized and much honored poet whose work now has canonical status in the history of American poetry of the 20th century. Before we turn our attention to Judith Goldman and her work this evening, I want to read a poem by Miles. It is not, I think, inappropriate to the occasion. Its title is Figure. A poem I keep forgetting to write is about the stars, how I see them in their order, even without the chair and bear and the sisters in their astronomic presence of great space, and how beyond and behind my eyes they are moving, exploding to spirals under extremist pressure. Having not mathematics, my head bursts with anguish of not understanding. The poem I forget to write is bursting fragments of a tortured victim, far from me and his galaxy of minds bent upon him, in the oblivion of his headline status, crumpled and exploding, as incomparable as a star, yet present in its light. I forget to write. I chose this poem of Josephine Miles to read this evening because it is a wonderful poem. But as I typed it into my computer, I realized that, apart from the bit about forgetting to write, something of what it speaks of seems prescient of aspects of Judith Goldman's work. Judith's work, too, at times articulates unself-pitying anguish of understanding, acute awareness of the fallacies and even sins that representation is capable of, ironic wit, and a perhaps unredemptive but certainly sustaining vision of the vaster constellations we probably can't yet name in their astronomic presence of great space. The past decade has seen the publication of 3 major and I would say unprecedented volumes of poetry by Judith, beginning with her first book, Vocoder, which was published in 2001 by Roof Books, one of the most significant publishers of innovative poetry in the U.S. 5 years later, Judith's second book, DeathStar, Rico-chet, appeared under the imprint of Krupskaya, one of the most adventurous of contemporary publishers of new writing. And thanks again to Krupskaya, as well as Judith's genius, within the past month, her third book, L.B., or Catenaries, has appeared. All 3 of those titles, thanks to the Cal bookstore, are available for you to look at and or purchase after the reading. Also, while I've interrupted my introduction here, I want to mention that there's a reception after the reading in the English Department Lounge, to which you are all invited. The title of Judith's third book, L.B., or Catenaries, may need a bit of explanation. As Judith points out in the postface of the book, L.B. alludes to Wordsworth and Coleridge's lyrical ballads of 1800, which was in its time a radical collection of poems attempting to fit, quote, their quote, to metrical arrangement, a selection of the real language of men in a state of vivid sensation. Like Wordsworth, then, Judith says, I am interested in conveying and perhaps manipulating affect through language. Like him, I'm in search of tones, musical and attitudinal, and postures that are both the quotidiana and marginalia of contemporary existence. As for catenaries of the title, a catenary is an arc, of the sort that would be formed by a rope hung very loosely between 2 points, with the rope so slack that it forms an arc between the 2 ends. It's a loose, slightly excessive material between the fixed points of the rope. In terms of the writing, it's all the stuff that swerves between words, the sound of voices, inefficient signification, and as Judith says, the thread from irony to pathos. Each of Judith's 3 published books has presented profound but also playful challenges to literary history, and more to the point, to historical time. Each has been of immediate relevance, which is to say each can be and has been read as a timely address to historical, linguistic, socio-political, and aesthetic quandaries of the moment, and to the mediating factors that impinge on our experience and understanding of them, to sometimes disastrous and sometimes hilarious effect. During this decade, Judith has also finished a compendious PhD dissertation on the 18th century Scottish political theorist Adam Smith. She has overseen, as co-editor with Leslie Scalapino, 3 issues of the highly charged literary journal War and Peace. She served for 3 years as the Harper Schmidt Fellow at the University of Chicago. She has appeared in Chicago in a major stage production of Carla Harriman's Mirror play, and she has written and performed as a neo-Benchi artist at several film festivals. Benchi is a Far East Asian art form, particularly under the name Benchi, a Japanese art form, which involves a live speaker who stands to the side of a film screen and narrates what's happening in the film. These are obviously silent films, both Japanese and Western silent films. And the Benchi artist will tell the audience what's going on, but will also take the voices of the different characters, usually with very highly melodramatic effect. So it's the equivalent of the sort of large facial and bodily gestures of the silent screen actors of the time. Finally, before I offer a few comments about her poetry, which can be difficult even while it is some of the most delightfully enjoyable bodies of work I know, I want to say something briefly about the class she is teaching this semester here at Berkeley because it's relevant to her poetics and her aesthetic commitments. It is simultaneously a manifestation of and an experiment in what she has several times referred to as her crazy research on traditions, novelties, inventions, and sheerly hallucinatory materializations of sonic features of poetic language. She and the students who are working with her have embarked on experiments with rhyme, rhythm, and reason, creating works in which rhythms displace sense, rhymes provide the infrastructure for meaning, syllables motivate semantics. It is an investigation into the meaning of language's sounds and an intervention into the sounds of meaning. For Judith Goldman, performance, live or in print, is an expression of an ethos of presence. But this presence is not that of ego. What she's interested in is an ethos of poetic presence. It is a social poetry, expressive of lyric sociality, and producing matrices of language from which social meaning and sociality in the most gracious sense can radiate. The tone of the work can be variously rational, pissed off, seductive, absurdist, erudite, uneasy, lackadaisical. She is attentive to cultural logics, to the accretive rush of cultural data, and to the power of emotional sensibilities, the multiform ways in which we get emotional, feel for things, experience our sensitivities, and fall prey to both good and bad forms of mediation, including especially perhaps the contemporary endless supply of images that seem to have on contemporary citizens a virtually narcotic effect, which we crave and self-administer at ever higher doses. As it says in the epigraph to her poem, If All Else Fails, in L.B. or Catenaries, an epigraph taken from something overheard on the street, gimme, 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 gimme doesn't get. This is, of course, true of the commodity culture. But in Judith's poetry, though perhaps it's true that gimme doesn't get, it is patently the case that gimme does give. Judith's is a poetry of abundance, a poetry of polyvocalism, rambunctiousness, ragged raging, and jouissance. It's a poetry of sexiness and eloquence and smarts. Please welcome Judith Goldman.
Thank you so much, Lynn. It's been a real pleasure and honor to be in Berkeley and to be part of this community, and also my students. I've really been enjoying our class, and thank you so much for making it great. I've, been concerned, though, about the budget crisis here at the university. So I wanted to make a conservational poem, strictly using the commons, or made out of only recycled literature. But then I realized that that was still too rich, because literature is so rich. and I was thinking of the regents, and I decided that there should be a 20% decrease in the lines. And I've tried very hard to make do with these cuts. I tried very hard, but you'll notice that this poem is hard on the ears. One's nice poetic economy starts to be not economizing, but destructive. We all know these cuts hurt. And for obvious reasons, this poem is dedicated to Lynn. It's called Austerity Measures, and it begins with an epigraph. I died for beauty, but was scarce. From Emily Dickinson. How do I love thee? Let me count. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one. Batter my heart 3. Gather ye rosebuds while ye. I sing the body. I got the weary blues, and I can't be. Out of the cradle endlessly. 'Twas brillig in the slithy. Let be finale. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye. In Xanadu did Kubla, I wandered lonely as a. An impulse to action sings of a. Often I am permitted to return to a. Do I dare to eat a? Once upon a midnight dreary while I pondered weak. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak. Sir, said I, or madam, truly your forgiveness, and miles to go before. My soul has grown deep like the. I lift my lamp beside the, and that has made all the. I met a traveler from an antique. Be that word our sign of parting bird or fiend, I shrieked. Thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt when lilacs last in the door. When I consider how my light is a rose is a rose is a rose is, that's my last duchess, I wandered lonely as. Do I repeat myself? Very well, I. Strange fits of passion have I. In a station of the what the hammer, what the split the lark, and you'll find the, with my crossbow I shot the, as Parmigianino did it, a slumber did my spirit. I placed a jar in, and round it was upon, so much depends upon, like nothing else in. Better to reign in hell than serve one that April with his shores. I know why the caged bird. Earth, receive and honored. Daddy, daddy, you bastard. Anyone lived in a pretty how. America, I've given you all, and now all the new thinking is about the blackbird whistling or just April is the cruelest. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to, you do not do, you do, I'm putting my queer shoulder to. I am large, I contain. When in disgrace with fortune and the world is too much with us late and, had we but world enough and, what a mortal hand, they also serve who only stand, till human voices wake us and, they fuck you up your mum and. They fuck you up your mum, go fuck yourself with your Adam. In the room the women come, like a patient etherized upon a stately pleasure dome. You are gorgeous and I am. Whose woods these are? I was of 3 minds, like a tree in which there are. My mistress' eyes are nothing that is not there, tall and of a port. We are the hollow men, we are. I caught this morning's tiger burning. My mistress' eyes are nothing, nothing that is not there, and the nothing after a great pain of formal feeling. Does it dry up like a raisin in, fluttering and dancing in? I felt a funeral in. So much depends upon a red. My life had stood a loaded. Seasons of mist and mellow could frame thy fearful. This is just to, the art of losing isn't hard to. Shall I compare thee to a summer's something there is that doesn't love, rage against the dying of, thou, still unravished bride of, From the jingling and the tinkling of, let me not to the marriage of, one must have a mind of. Do not go gentle into that. They may not mean to, but I never lost as much but, and tall and of a port. Though I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped, while she whispered a song along the keyboard to Mal Waldron, and everyone and I stopped. Beauty is truth, truth. I'm nobody. Who are fled is that music? Do I wake or the only emperor is the emperor? So this is a poem about the Gulf oil spill. It's called Negan Tropics, Large Eddy Simulation, Amoebian Song, Naphtha Corrects It remix. It begins with an epigraph from Gerard Manley Hopkins' God's Grandeur. And for all this, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness deep down things. And though the last lights off the black west went, oh, morning at the brown brink eastward springs, because the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods with warm breast and with awe bright wings. My good and plenty's God beeps. My sheeps beeps back. My bucolic redirects to sheep-hear and speakin', sheep-heard's bark arc of arcades a dog's work. Past this pasteurized pastiche I paste in God, my good axon as neurons projection split, splice XX on, ergo my therefore let's go. Come live with me and be my glove. I need gloves to clean the grout. Fly ash and bottom ash, slick silica, full range naphtha, rural, intramural, wave pool, viral sprawl, no plug plagues, implicature, hex or octagonal, supernatural thermal madrigal, Dead Sea scrolls down, gelling in cold vapor pour, seepage when the cap leaks, fish collected and booms deployed. And if there's no bayou, the idle winterized pipes on pier foundation, intermatic digital timer with freeze protect for piping in pump at lower temp, Wondershare, time freeze, freeze guard, preset keys will override pump runtime, frost text thermostat datasheet, Aqualink, one touch rapid share AccuStrip, lock in tab, all links open, but would it be possible to restrict users to edit only certain cells or flat out freeze protect the cell from being changed? Winterized, soft archive, winterized and flushed. My dog's phytocystic system's high fruct factored, fear-fucked, anaerobic mulked, para-aramids in a pyramid fed to the grid directly. Hard on the lips, God's blistex is petrolipid, my phytoblast was limp, I limped. My limpid lamp shows through an ultraviolet light. I spent my Groupon on a full metal assist, on AstroTurf, my ass or stellar default, Astrophel, asphalt. Asphalt, paraffin, kerosene, tar. Neoprene, styrofoam, Teflon, Kevlar. Toes out. Need some shoe goo. National Contingency Plan, Petrochemical Product Schedule. Surface and subsurface, recursive, dispersive. There's less undispersed on the surface. It's crude, not counterinsurgents. Crude plumes, precursors, carbon-carbon for catalytic hydrocracking. Upgrades, heavy fractions, carbocation, a delayed coker for anode coke or needle coke. And soaker vis breaking. The bulk of the cracking reaction occurs on the surface and subsurface. Recursive, dispersive. There's less undispersed on the surface. It's crude, not burning plastic. Metabolic middens, toxic. No way to matriculate this condemned matrix. Hydraulics, variance, and anomaly analysis, make my way in wayward waves to multi-phase, to landfills, tipping face, sacred acreage of carboniferous cessfuss, muck heap hype, how to house the outhouse, not out enough, puff, puff, charter of flow chart, methane's iChat's fucked up, grotesque agronomy, overpressure rupture, mantles, contaminants, leach past liners, disposal spray foam before control burn, stratospheric aerosol veil. God beeps in, the world is charged with credit card fraud, It will flame out sang-froid of a gargoyle, asbestos flocking in ooze of oil, it shatters to abate, box of oxide to boil at crust. Why Kennebunk? Why Cape Cod? Generators slipshod, disvisible firing squad, seared with trade. Alluvial and recoil, wears man smudge, shares man smell, oil, royale is bare now, nor can foot feel shoddy tripod, burnt bush, goldenrod, uploading real-time drilling data. God beeps as the world recharges, its docking foiled. My harpoon seals at Kelvin, my cattle prods a buoy, turned into a real goyle. And there we will sit upon the rocks, fracking, and see shepherds feed their flocks, the shear rams on the blowout preventer. I need some photons and 2 other similar-sized tanks to vent chlorine gas into clean crap, dry erase for my EnviroPack's lint trap. God, how much RAM does my horn have? Charge my flex account for drill bit, aquasocks viscosity, 10 my sheep and oxide hypoxia or bust. Arbeit macht operate to failure, to corrosion, corruption, to rust. For God beeps, polymercy. God merchandises my rig. So I'm going to read some excerpts from Case Sensitive, which is a performance piece from my book, DeathStar, Rico-chet. And this text draws on many sources, including 2 epics of war, the Mahabharata and the Iliad. I first performed Case Sensitive on March 20th, 2003, the day the United States started Operation Iraqi Freedom as part of our exercising our right to preemptive war. The poem uses many voices that are not quite characters. It presents a meeting of a war council that debates whether a case has been made to validate the initiation of hostilities with an unnamed enemy. But this case about whether to go to war takes place inside another case about whether war has already been declared. Hostilities seem to have been initiated, but the formal order to initiate them has to keep being rewritten because everyone disagrees about whether war is justified, and if it is so, why. So the poem begins in medias res, as Homer begins his epics. In medias res. And or Juno broke blood from a stone, came to see who in place that he would not help, etc. So now doubt you, alas? Call the meeting to order. To anyone in the actual world, oration, etc., and being trained to follow companions going down beneath the hands of transitive, shares in the conflict and or peril, alas, of combat, etc., intransitive, and or always catch attention before taking place, placement, place of all other resemblances, only what that good artillery at the vanishing point, alas. Right of right to self-defense obtains. Most avid onlookers, oration, etc. Do you wish to bring back a man who, alas, is mortal, or beat him under, beneath, with hands out of the strong encounter? It is, as I said, no proof wrong has been done. Hear, hear. So, power me, depending me, print could justification, and or even if he masters his rage, intransitive, appointed as refuge, death as far as possible, models everything, etc., alas, alike. His own part, and or not to interfere. But not all the rest of us shall approve you. Pending, alas, details, alas, recall the meeting to order. Artificer presiding, artificed president. Ahem, etc. Prepare the order. Ain't it the shit 'twas purest light of heaven whose fair love they fell? Heart in my breast, balanced between and or tampered with, alas, mixed media, alas. Hear, hear. Suppose, to give an example, suppose an uproar were to be heard, transitive, testifies against, transitive, muscle in, etc., lapse into pointlessness and or at once lose hearing into sight, intransitive, pricking it for pity, virtue, virtue by, virtue of, virtue, 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 etc., regime change, alas, virtue, virtue, in detention, they, nothing doubt, prevailing, etc. What is meat be said, it must be meat. Meet him later, blood now. Transitive. Flat wall, flat riposte, detonates parodic form, they got, etc., should be let off, alas. Blood, parody, mixed media. Cut it, quit it, unprepare the order. Okay, so the order to go to war is unprepared and re-prepared a few times with different ultimatums. And then there's this one part called Lyric Interlude that I'm going to read. It's a speech given by the stone, which at the very beginning of the piece was named as an accessory to the infractions committed by the enemy. So the stone is this sort of abject character, and his objection has to do with the bare quality of his animacy. It is really all he can do to get recognized, to initiate address. And I like this part of the poem because it really underscores the vulnerability of lyric address. Speech of the Stone, Lyric Interlude, employs speech to represent speech. The stone speaks. Hi. 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 Salute. Salutes. Greetings. Hereby, insert citation. Being stone and or being made of stone, being entirely stony, solid and or hollow, alas, inert, alas, I'm sorry, I apologize, appointed as, regrets to don't obey this, doesn't. Quite who is acting? Trying to, tries. Know what I mean? Insert citation. What have you seen me, thank you, back-scratching, ontology, back-scratching, transitive, quid pro encryption, inert, quid, intransitive, quid it, here, insert citation. Standards must be maintained, standards must be maintained, standards must be maintained, alas, etc. From being close enough, shrugs. A dream repeats itself, shrugs. Some form of demand, fails to catch, inert, quid, fails to catch a likeness, fails. Boss, I'm sick, ontology, imposed on as if from elsewhere, salutes. Form of case of emergency, know what I mean? Get it? Gets it. With a spur so keen, standards must be even in good stead. Boss, I'm sick, say thank you to the nice words. Inert, insert citation. Words are to thought as flesh is to the human soul. Thought to flesh as flesh is to the human soul. Soul is to words as to cut flesh, to cut thought. Say thank you to the nice artillery. Say thank you. Yours truly, signed, what do I say? Intransitive. What hope, my thought. So now I'm going to read a bit from my new book, LB, which is published by Jocelyn Seidenberg. Thank you again. Okay. Get this together. I am in disguise. From my hidey hole, I broke, breaking through a break of hawthorn, my gown unhappy with this particular baroque. I felt as though I had found my way. I didn't want to take anything else in. Whereupon we hoped I would be changed back into the human form we had grown accustomed to me in which I had occupied, if not well, then boldly, and with stout good humor, and so thought I deserved my human form. A powerful sense of hop. How may I hop you? Can I help you? Let's get started. Push enter so we can begin. I hop about bewildered. I am gray like ash. Please keep your receipts. Suit yourself. The skin is held tightly against your chest to see if it goes. Adulterate night, to shade I turn appeasing, not that shade, overrighted, but this griff gifted so calcified it cried, ad hominem I noticed, Myers their bleeding overalls, the gag tied too tightly, would a sick ass click. Take any remedy who I command my six. Now, that's not friend-like fire. Give me my armor or you're storied. Locked up in that moment? The page you requested has moved, Mr. Father. Okay. So this next piece is a little longer. It's called Watch It. I'm going to dream within a dream. And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. Mark 13:37. Watch down. Hands off. Hands off? Hands off? Hand off. Watch badly wounded, badly wound. Reticular slump. Jailbroken, not on my watch, mutters. Leave him on watch for a moment. Get on that clock. I'm on it. Go about your business, nothing to see here. Neath your hoop skirt, packed in a trunk you thunk to keep time, as if an amber times a fly. But repetition ousts, so why'd you bottle him? We were ticked. Isn't everybody? Every time interrupts. He steals and stales. Slows, adds hourly. Oft he held the second to finish his mouthful of sentence, saving 9 all over the place. 100 o'clock. Begs at his own table, eh? Well, I don't hear his ticker. Yes, how time flees. No, I think it's ticks. Collar him, then clock him. Why? He's wasted, spent. Shh. We mourn noon and night, the untimely demise, the tintinnabulation of this most wisest counselor's watchword. 4 o'clock, watch. That late already, eh? How labor punches me, carded like wool. O tempore. Though feelings are there I cannot benumb. I mock your verdicts, neither do I speak nor keep silent. I turn my glass, lay waste to... Oh, wait a minute, he's talking. No, ticking. Tick, says watch. Genius. No man is born wise. I have to ripen you. Now. Where's my taming hand, my band? I take it you're not alarmed, clock? Watch. Natch. You mean that I'm out the joint? It's about time. My sickle's compass, chariot's winging it. Talking tick shit. Tick won't lip back a minute, pulling out of his waistcoat pocket another waistcoat with another, though smaller, pocket. What is this? A charade parade? Ticker temperature? What, my signature, the sign of me? Nay, in one self-born hour, this glistering present, when your teeth seem firmly attached to your jaw, my every wheel holding fast to its cogs, I'm hooked up to myself. In such paradise, nothing but buds. Wait, what's this? In holly fell? Thorns bedecked? This thistle prickle my prick as I tick. And in the nick of it, or ahead of myself? Oh, this is bad timing. Cannot find my mount. Ah, these numbers, timely, how timely. We let number decide. Number shifts from one foot to the other. Restroom? It's his accent. I shall reset, content to adapt to these analyses. Yes, never put your foot where you can't see the ground. The whole stud, how to dispose of them. Hobble to your hobby time, you night watchman, you. Pastime? Okay, let's blow this Hamlet. Will you please to counter clickwise? Watch it, clock. You're too forward. I thought I was running short. The hand must be repressed. Turn me round. Counter him. Countering. No, counterclockwise. There. Opportunity seized. Carpe. Long time no see. I bade you put into port. Guess I'm of the essence. Know me like the present. At what door lie these injuries? Hadn't you better say what o'clock? Is it crunch time? Lunchtime. What I would not devour. Oh, for a 3-minute egg. What have we here? Minute rice? No. Festina lente. I'm hungry. Will you have the goodness to produce your spoon and feed me? Will you have seconds? Of course. Or thirds? Charming. They say third times, he's come to. He's come unwound. Yes, time's out of mind. Watch. We must inform you, you are not time itself. I see I'm being watched. Well, where is it then if not in me? I spring forward. That's a fallback. And in due time, I suffer, expletive deleted, setbacks. As for me, riven, or more proverbially, river, I take my tolls now for the time being. Okay, let's see. Witching, present. Heals all wounds, here. Money, here. Yes, one at a time. Don't you run me down, sportsman. This clock's sufficient unto the day. Let me pass, or I'll get the big guns. Eternity. Eternity. I'm whilst and between whiles. Oh, yes, I'm very solicitous on that head. And that gradually swelled till it filled every void. Eternity zones out. Wouldn't give it the me of day, time for that being long gone by, from me immemorial or from this time forth. Time enough? Anyway, no dust rose at us, no growth untried. Well, these are trying times. Well, I am trying. In the sovereignty of my abstraction, on men's souls at least I march on, borrowed or no, run back to fetch the age, give lettered pomp its teeth, for old me's sake. I've been so killed, yet still prime. I've got my personal ticks, but I say, never save for always a-flying, shaking himself off, time stamped. Spend me, rosebuds, make much, I'm unredeemable. Or is it none like the future? But that's another project. So here's a couple other real short ones. Motorcade. Groveling, A, B, lingers. Orifice to orifice, erratic hours, aura, fish. Enjambed in its. B for pelican, pelican before a table, fist bunch round fork end, officiously and largely bibbed with a semi-clean dishcloth. My orifice, too, officious. Welcome to the Forbidden City. May I take your order? I have discharged the office, bloomed, I have shrove to the same scale. Work diary. Tore my face off and ate it. Stupid blunder. Hardly recognize myself. Still in my dressing gown. The blockade forces us to improvise. Well, somebody should do all my paintings for me. Keep up the good work. Not having seen me again. Do your share. Go through with it. Do it. I have a single fin and swim in circles. I'm working on it, imitating work. I went in and did it, like a job, in a single take. Leaves it open. What will it come to? Or wondering what has become of it. This is untitled. Sea has no score behind the roar. Father on the beach calling to the reference, stay on the shore. Okay, so I'm going to read parts of a work in progress. Which may be a little foolhardy, but I'm doing it. That I have been writing this week. It uses text from the 17th century diggers movement, a movement that wanted to return the commons to the poor and to work and plant that land together. And towards that end, I quote a big swath from Gerard Winstanley, who's a major figure in the diggers towards the end of this piece. This also uses Kafka's story, The Burrow, another kind of digging, very associative, I guess, and it's another imaginary of another world inside or beneath this one. And this piece is staged as a conversation between Occupy and the powers that be. So it begins with a few epigraphs. It's called Fauna Maths. "Money is not money," said Edgar to Edgar. "What do you mean by that?" said Edgar. "I mean by that," said Edgar, "that money is not money if you do not owe money to another." "Oh, yes, yes," said Edgar. "But you always do. You do always owe money to another." "No," said Edgar, "no." That's from Gertrude Stein, Why I Like Detective Stories. "The house is still but a sort of porch at the entrance of a burrow." That's from Henry David Thoreau, Walden. And "In Cobham on a little heath, our digging there goes on." And that's from Gerard Winstanley, a watchword to the city of London. So the first part quotes and alters a translation of the beginning of Kafka's The Burrow. And I'm sure you will all recognize the technique that I use for this first part. But don't worry, it doesn't go on for too long. We have completed the construction of our burrow, and it seems to be successful, All that can be seen from outside, is a big hole. That, however, really leads nowhere. We can make no boast of having contrived this ruse intentionally. True. Some ruses are so subtle that they defeat themselves. And it is certainly a risk to draw attention by this hole, to the fact that there may be something in the vicinity worth inquiring into. We have changed our place. We have left the upper world and are in our burrow. Living rooms in the cellar, attic in the cellar also in it. Walls with single casing, walls with the entire earth behind them to plead this cause of digging. Inmost and in plural, crowdsource, file share, groundswell, suffer corridor. It could well happen. Suffix, prefix, makeshift, and predicate usurped thus. What are the demands? All spirits, terminal electric voices, horizontality. Refer supra. A right or liability has been created for. What's one and one and one and one and one and one in the monetized? Your fenditure and swipe card, farked flex cash, pretermitted of disposal over, ward of guard, a yield, a Latin tinder, gauge gudgeon of purchase or secure against, materialized temporal bond, temporalized material bond, velocity, encumbrance of that realty, futurity, traffic, on sufferance that, remember the clocks, look well to your locks. Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? Huge of bigness, bestrider and bestridden. Oh, they want it itemized. We need this minimum shit. preloaded with contact data groomed, single version of supply chain truth, analgesic metric, tier 1 help desks. To hell, your counters. Contracted contract. What joy for the legs to skip stairs. So I'm going to skip a part here where they have a conversation about finance, and the powers that be think they're calling all the shots and defining reality. And they keep reinstating the financial system and the whole socio-political hierarchy. Fancy that. And then Occupy answers back. To score settle in perpetual beta, shit-ton lamed oblation unabated, press gang the pulse of blood in ears, word welt in feel of laws, would have us pay back this life loan by bank of hell, garnish wage to mortal stake, kettle crowd and scuttle earth as deck. Bursar, what and if there were no hand to dispense or unpurse air we mean to breathe with lusty guts? Nothing sovereign. No circuits of conversion, numb numbers, dummy hand. This a discard, first-time farce and neat tally marks. Who hog the ball, pay as forfeit surfeit to zero flush with ground till night comes like today. So, debenture, pa-ubu, let us sup. Our money died. We're overbooked. Leaf is cause of leaves, no further concept monochromes debt, but debt falls due. If you could open this attachment, money, disincarned yet carnadine, shop soiled as receipt, as debt in motion, value store, or as superflux of earth, and earth custodian moots binary terror plus wear and tear, yes, torn along the folds, as all maps overworn, outworn. Pension blight, overrate hike, only some expressions in the scratch of projective arithmetics, accounts delinquent. Every level yardarm, the touched for cash take hold of touching. Endless global panorama, fleshed out, fugued. This, your homepage, earnest of the bargain. We can all make a mistake. Sir, our digging and plowing upon George Hill in Surrey is not unknown to you, since you have seen some of our persons and heard us speak in defense thereof. Police fence we took down in force, steel fence steelworkers shout against. And we did receive a mildness and moderation from you in your council of war, both when some of us were at Whitehall before you, and when you came in person to view our works, till you, to limit internet and heat, generators did forbid, tore down camp, ripped the tents, tear gas, wooden dowels, rubber bullets, flashbangs, and passive face of earshot shot. We endeavor to lay open the bottom and intent of our business as much as can be, that none may be troubled with doubtful imaginations about us, but may be satisfied in the sincerity and universal righteousness of the work. We understand that our digging upon that common is the talk of the whole land. Some approving, some disowning, some are friends filled with love and see the work intends good to the nation, the peace whereof is that which we seek after. Others are enemies filled with fury, and falsely report of us that we have intent to fortify ourselves, and afterwards to fight against others and take away their goods from them, which is a thing we abhor, or maybe not. And many other slanders we rejoice over, because we know ourselves clear, our endeavor being no otherwise but to improve the commons and to cast off that oppression and outward bondage which creation groans under, as much as in us lies, and to lift up and preserve the purity thereof, and to flash mob in a molar chaos, economies of image, spaces, to x-ray with naive and polythetic title all subtractive superlineation, to flex absorptive, mark the reflex, wordless or with voiceover, this our imaginative migration. To immanentize uncommitted inventory, reconjugate grapple and auger, skid, steer, conversion, wraps or warps, we need tarps. And the truth is, experience shows us that in this work of community in the earth and in the fruits of the earth, our shareware and our open source, edges that signify and spaces in between, this whole in time and will and overplus, we consents unforeclosure, class action effect crash to asset class, unmerchandise, Cartesian anesthesia, undeserting of world. We do not price it out. For you know not what that it can fall off as form, to disfalse, de-accession, cloud-based, hashtag open public cloud, milieu in lieu of domicide, smallholders first estate. We are high on our own supply, hard thorn and soft eth. We clap in thunderclaps to be broken back at. Little night music, listen for it. There's last short poem I'm going to close with. This is called The Independence of the Substrate. Our seminar is now over. That which could be said has been either well or poorly said. I said more than I thought, working out my own version. In the sea, kayaks, their oars to onshore me, toothpicks. They move in time along slim yellow sides, but not at the same angle. Endless inventories keeps coming out different as a byproduct of position. Where were thee when grief doubled over, the lithe figure running, saying, mine? Located so as to degrade and destroy it, in the way of fumbling these straps, messes me up. I could not remember one single tear. Nobody, I am nobody. I live on illegal unemployment and shit jobs. I have decency shred. I'm holding it. My palms won't sweat while I hold it. It's reinforcing the designated area. Picking a hen clean, ich went to paradise, ich was intimidated. My Lord Caesar has set me free, disgruntled screen, grunts. Let me stateside do my overseas, please, my poor leaky ass, disgruntled screen. Watch out, or I'll take that leg away too. When you limp a little with a stitch in your side, or the same but crushed neath the weight of it, what if you are the sick passenger? Whatever doesn't let me die every day, be on my side. I'll be on your side. Then pull away the chalks. If there is a bare spot on the ground, if you were buttered, if you landed butter side, don't shed your body. How will I find you? Continuous as the stars, continuous as the stores, some place to enter inputs, quiet tapping from a cell, morselated body morses. God deafen us, and we will thank you for this void. Who is the main character? No further questions. Oh, but we are so rough-hewn. 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 Thank you.
Thank you, Judith Goldman. That was fantastic reading. Thank you all for coming. Please join us for a reception down the hall in the English Department Lounge. If you just turn right and then turn left, it's the last door on your right at the end of that corridor. But just follow others. You'll find it. Thanks again.